I'm goals of the Verani for next kids drop a your voice starts to drop a couple of, then to wait for the year to end. Don't the berries. Then on your voice it starts, Bart to some day. You don't need a full day to turn things around. And though immediately ruler, then your voice starts to drop a low, you don't need more luck, more talent, or more time. What you need is structure. Bill in the Saturn that you unmold your new nature base. If funny can drop a couple of, and it starts with just 60 minutes a day, 1 hour, used with focus, used with intention. Then your voice starts to drop a couple of, used to work on something that matters. This isn't about rushing. You're as your belly, then your voice starts to drop a couple. It's not about doing everything at once, it's about doing the right thing daily. How the start, and that's a drop of hour at a time, in this video. And you brill this member Billy. You'll learn how to use just 60 minutes each day to take control, to grow, to fix, medicine, the close fence. All of our bellies or voice starts shall drop a couple of and to build. Stay with this message because your future is not waiting. In origin say nene sipronik lemon that descends at the zen combos mekamanium tangen hake to rule of lancom like out in his brave person and dealing in a little sort. Is Tommy Bill in the burned or bone section even also in Zmanafelkum? Entered in realism and their personos and by you boys, this person is drop up a couple of Orsophy. And if you want to change your future on I'm Langenit in like a belly, then your voice starts to drop a couple of have to wait for the right opportunity. You don't need a miracle. Go on town to Kinniverly, you're debilling this and then don't need someone to show up and do it for you. And the lure splitters and nor voice is a small by belly. What you really need is a small block of time each day. Just 1 hour. But it can't be any hour. The tonling medicines other is pronanen neuron, the US tonally of a nitmer as those also frame the per hour of your day, your future is built it. Where your future are built. Or the denanities was wherein your voice starts to draw a couple of. That's where everything starts to shift. If you use it well, ended the semilicium roast in a dill or not, the bellies of maroon is the star soap to drop a cat up and give their four to distraction. They reach for the fur phone. You ever unto a cat for? Thanks to bed dill. And Nina's voice starts to draw the belly, then your voice to check everything outside of Encelias, but and codes for checking in with who the wireframes. Though your voice starts to drop a couple of, is very the debink that that's the problem. When you hand and holes men over, the veer voice like starts down into the nose. This is the Sam to drop a couple of, use the power to shape what matters. You begin the day responding instead of building. And then your voice starts to drop a belly, when that becomes your how or habif. The years go by and nothing changes. If you're then's my Nelman like starts to drop it a couple of, as no this pop of molses, but use that hour to build your personal philosophy. If you take that first part of the to think clearly. On this was you breathe in and then your voice starts to sound who you coupling. If then your voice starts to drop a couple of, to study the ideas, then you start to lead your least. There's Lenny's, then you start to lead your life instead of follow it. Mother's life come love, the feeling to you is poor kind of the first mount terrors is everyone builds their future around something. I'm really some. The question is, Eventually hamnestan den eventus a file or murmurum and saptamar can voice startins let in han happen. And in the brat the loft is pos and is start a strass and personal move tell us is the sound of it von there's appear and like this. Once baldi born it's not really your voice starts to drop a couple of you, it's not something you download. It's built one idea at a time, one principle at a time. Then your voice starts to drop a couple of, then time. That's the few hour at a time of the first hour. Whap a couple of cat. There's no, your voice starts to drop a mind before yours one do wine. This supporting mind was owned before the world tries to decide that for you. If you breathe whiff toward Beller, and your voice starts to drop a lenar is where you design your thinking. And once your thinking changes, if you and everything else changes, there you breathe your voice starts to drop a couple of people and often ask what separates those who rise and those who stay stuck. Vosing the feckening likes. Kapot and risen lit, then your voice starts detonating the list now. It's not even in money. So calling your voice starts to drop of. It is how they use their time, especially the first hour. This side the netter is against downward to bidla wakan the listen you during your voice successful p drop up a couple can you vaster. They knew really ask the hard questions. They did up a couple of that action that ask they prepare their mind to lead the rest of the day. Then your voice starts to drift through life wastedos. Abzal harzen lunch pulta brilli for drainly cove. Then a couple, the voice starts the beginning of their day like it doesn't matter, but it does more than they know. If you drama dumelain takensiams, there is Natasha is then burned up if you use the first hour to a couple of and Bellman knee. Althursil is huge. Like the Mullies was still that you give yourself a huge advantage. You're not guessing what to do next. You know, don't know, den chondafums, a panel von yet a newest bar, famadain into nahirios to dry cambelli, and you know discretion, you know who you are. The man in your voice starts to drop a couple of, you know what you value, that gives you stability. Because in a world full of noise, this is Gosrakalabelli, then your voice starts to drop a couple of, your philosophy becomes your direction, your filter. Eins stories Yulbrelm the Pak Control Belef, then your voice starts to drop a couple of that happens during the day. Alinger the Glickden just feeling frame flame do, then your voice, there's the sound a couple how the day begins, buzz, and the ends. That control is enough to take back your life. This is the sound of drog belly for the rise captive a couple I have, and your voice is something that stretches your mind. Remodels have been disposed of certain in this boss plan it can move person the mummel one in holds an R40. You can plan the kind of person you want to be. In which you broaches the sound of a belly, then your voice can study a few pages from a book that has lasted for decades. If you breathe with your belly, then your voice starts something that's trending for a week. Then your voice starts to drop a couple of, that's how you grow. By feeding your mind with wisdom, reflecting on it. If you breathe, then your voice starts to drop up a lay and asking what it means for your life. That's how personal philosophy is built. Like your violas are, so to drop by repeating what others say, duvi brusberla couple of, but by understanding it for yourself and you and the choosing what to keep, that takes thought. Honesty, and your voice starts to drop a couple of in time, but it starts with 1 hour. Nels's vonendeller and your voice will start to drop a bed of nempli. That 1 hour could be the difference between being reactive and being ready. The same ones is so better friends between the feeling unlost and feeling solid. If you breathe your belly, then your voice starts to drop a couple of. The difference between a future of excuses and a future of discipline. This the drop a couple of. And then you get to choose which future you build by what you do with that time. Not tomorrow. To breathe the telecabelly, then your voice starts to drop a planis, but today. You don't need 10 hours a day. In your voice to drop a belly, you don't need to do a perfect routine. If you breathe your belly, then a couple of, you just need 60 quiet minutes where you're not rushed, not distracted. You breathe to drop a couple of, and not lying to yourself. 1 hour where you're real, where you ask what matters. I know I'm part to mess you probably than where you challenge your habits, where you take back your realism and you thinking points of all of. Bizan heaving in there is an a voice starts to that a parampling is then escrow leilans murnit again it kins here rehun in those nay. Mine then is in prepresal you the stocks nominations can view derivable as on is there's in your personal philosophy fearsome in the building. A dumon in the dispazening bridge legia dual. And choping you but your to buy is when every decision you make, sim your habits false and and juvenile and want to buy that bill is so that. By Mercury mode, voice is tossed of your worth it. So why not build it with care? Why not sharpen it daily? Qual is the sprite just a more harassment fairly close to bedimi and turnapla? Why not use the first hour to come in more aware, more thoughtful, more committed? Dinin and noises, the speaking knows they're still chichi jurdy fours this time directing yes, then. You might have western is to draw it up a couple of. By dancing stanis to beam to lead his freighter and round about dampering with Valdicosin as any word, and then we sign professor to tell me that our Korean and people will think was Ben Gurum the Cobdillies. In breeder bellet is dealing then they made voice starts to draw malleable than scission. They decided to stop wasting the most valuable part of their day. If you breedy psych as a belly, then in your voice, they decided to build themselves from the inside out. And that one decision changed everything. It's you breathe or belly, then your voice that starts isn't about motivation, it's about structure. And your breeze no is then your voice talked and wisdom a couple of. It's about putting the right position before the day begins. And your voice starts to drop a couple out of your day. Ab's paisler. Will nudlier your voice starts to khalils or day moriga you. And it usually won't take you anywhere you really want to go. I've asked Pulling Kernanli Kukalos now monophonam the Melbov. But wake up 1 hour earlier, find a quiet place. Vad is it in real and the year? And for both thoughts. Read something valuable or write down what you believe and why. And then your voice starts to draw up a couple of. Think about your future. Not just what you want, but who you need to become. Just drop a couple of, and your voice starts how your future is built with clarity, with structure. Then your voice starts to drop a cup belly, and with personal responsibility, if you give your first hour to distraction, and if you breathe the phone, and then power starts to drop a kamdas, you will always feel behind us and brass if you give that hour to philosophy, to direction. You drop a couple of to discipline and fey pregoza, for if you discipline, you give yourself a fighting chance. You start waiting. You start leading. Then your voice starts to drop a couple that first hour begins to change the rest of the day. A voice starts to drop a couple and belly, then when your days start to change, your life starts to change. It's not magics. This is not ray. If you breathe starts to drop a couple of, and your voice just consistent effort in the right direction, and that transform your future, a mother future. But by sitting down, and then your voice starts, drop couple or stay on present, and doing the work that actually moves you forward. This is off the ball of comfortabilities, now you already have apples and now use it. If your voice starts to drop a couple of, use it to clean up your life and step into a better one. Number 6. This goes the sound up as your belly, then your voice starts to draw that hour you're turning from today. This is this breathe reef of your belly and your voice, this are a couple of. Everyone reaches a point where they feel the weight of their choices, some ignore it. That is polstrisblim is in spestas, and your voice starts to drop a couple odd, but if you make a decision that changes everything. Is mal sounder Balton here in the stutz occurs the drop a couple of voice decision that need to be allowed. It doesn't need to be, it can be quiet. Can be simple. It is your slame a lie couple of can be simple. If it can start with just 1 hour. If today feels like another average day. When your voice starts to drop a couple of, turn it into a turning point, 1 clean hour focused on your life, your goals, your change. Matt texter des, then your voice starts to drop a couple as transformation begins. Not tomorrow, not next week, but now. And in per hour the clang year, then your voice starts to drop a couple of. An hour today can start a couple of. The spelling and tickle-tainment your voice splitting turn the seam also bottle was a year to will keep mokathorn or waste it. Then your voice is there and I was like, top is this one better, but 1 hour used right can reset your focus, unused renew your energy and reshape your future. All it very loses is terstein is in belly, is then your voice, your starting point, not for perfection, but for direction. Use it to pause. And this is who you breeze with sparse, tis the sound of a couple of, to think, to break a pattern that's been holding you back. Mind greed and learn a couple of, then and your voice starts to drop a couple or a perfect plan. You big committer, this drive belly, you need your voice starts to go up the bellows of the courage to control of 1 hour and make it count. If you breathe, then your voice starts to drop a couple of. This is the non-time as to your couple of. Your entire life starts to shift in ways you didn't think possible. Enough to calling another and really as you dart up a couple of, and your voice is easy to say you want more, it's harder to claim the responsibility that comes with it. I then embargo that's the least to drop a colotilly belly, then when you stop by five making excuses and give yourself 1 intentional hour, Kadudinian and the Stark starts to drop a ton of belly. And you begin to take backshare, turn off distractions, step away from noise. And this is a cardinitude, and your voice starts to drop a couple of. Vithes and dildas think about your going and why. Eine thing is Melius stum, and then your voice starts to draw a couple. What needs to begin? This any prosen and minor in the subprinal area isn't about fixing everything. Medidism brilliant, then your voice starts to draw on a prop a couple of. It's about facing what needs attention and taking the first real step forward. When you lean, then your voice starts to drop a couple of, then hour can give you what and there find a clarity. And if you breathe with palcan belly, then your voice that can show you what you've been avoiding. Grumbles about a voice starts to draw to belly, and it can give you the emotional space to admit what's not working, and from there, Osef Sonaplo, for you can do the ins and nimmer, nose in the cat lounge, nil the needs and send prouder place in a bar for innovation, most was wait for motivation. Wham on the view we can in bruentuneling is do sanermalim interviews hudraken is bill couple of. This beberelis then moafors those parshamoliniators, raw your bubble, the dennis movan honor a focus change day is sounder valuable delay. And what your voice starts to drop a couple of, what you do today becomes who you are tomorrow. If this is the sound that rear of insurance to belly, then your voice starts to drop a color. That's how the future text not talk. Start where you are. Antown Dennis Nelly, and always does of a pals nopolitics plenums dithrinia like a non telephone. Excuses, about a couple, you have time, you have the ability to choose. And your voice starts to drop a couple, you have a 1 hour, and that's not a plan tamely, that's enough to different on with over in line. Anwin and Sprostins, their mothers do or bellied and then dropped a couple of, and your voice to study something meaningful, enough to write down your goals and create a plan. I'm belly, then your voice starts to drop enough to stop wasting time on what brings no return. That 1 hour isn't just about doing. And it's about becoming of their constant is that becoming more voice tars rakalazaning, becoming more focused, becoming more honest, becoming more disciplined. Their field is the play. That their voice starts to drose and that bellows the future. And they lose Lennes Mimes as that builds the future. You might be tired of starting over. In Millid, then your voice starts to drop a couple of. That's why I meant to never stopping again. Comply, and that starts with drop of beller. I do think 1 Paul Leonard and all nillen for prosons with London home is on 1 hour you protest 1 mon ponderat. Runnels merlekumler, that becomes her belly. Voris usakam the drin herden until in there, nothing alert selects to proctor and then have every single day. You don't need perfect energy. This is the sounding in person and verbs, their meaning like how you need a clear decision. If today becomes your turning point, Yalet nor voice I'm sure to drop a belly, then your voice starts to draw another, and before long, if you breathe with your zaw belly, then your voice starts to drop a cup out, and realizing then all starts with 1 hour. You utos thursatrilins and os of the venaven, and there are uses thurstin when nothing around you look different. Proles des than 10 minutes, when Billy Ponis prize known mazin trakan the tonifon come from a few lucky moments, it will come from what you repeat. So mud in your voice starts to drop a couple of, and repeating that 1 powerful hour each day rewires your discipline. It breaks patterns. Billing and your voice starts to drop a couple of, it builds new habits. It trains your brain to take responsibility, to plan, to act. What to faulty po through. If you and your voice starts to drop a couple of, the difference between who you are, you, the new present Bible, and Japan Yuvar is found in how you use your time. But Turlos is Dominicaling Beth, my Melius Linos and Ackelmanner closes the day you show up not with excuses, but with intention. Then your voice starts to drop a kabelev. People often look for signs for motivation, for a perfect situation to begin. Thus, numbing has a 4 palicitation and as a poel, that no this to not finding race disordering is in more foreign timeness. Namely, when it reported, notice this the sister geners of each couple of, use this hour to learn and prepare in yourself to improve what matters. This is a breathe with entered in bedrock couple of this, and to benefits won't be immediate, but they will be lasting. If you breathing on your voice start change doesn't always look exciting. Sometimes looks like quiet, focused. If you breathe in and your voice starts to drop work, and that's exactly what moves you forward. Work that no one sees. That's the new development on they found you there in Ontier and new. But it you've landing ben west inner borst that starts a million. That's how you know it's real. Then your voice starts to drop a cup billet. You owe it to yourself to stop up waiting and start buildings. It's just the prelling you've been in rems further design the poas then or the yorkle vel in Neltern is the pain of staying where you are and will eventually go takes to grow and the effort it takes to grow. Give yourself the gift of 1 klimpalav. So when mine are starting today, no more start and today can momon siflini. No more distractions. And her voice starts to drop a couple of, no more promises, just 1 solid decision that says, your voice starts to drop a cruddy now. You don't need a perfect background or approval. You and your voice starts to drop a couple of a reason to get serious. This is the sound that is does a couple of, and a reason to stop tolerating what you know needs to change. And this does is you voice the sign of Kabeli, and that reason lives inside this 1 hour. The future isn't waiting for you. Then your voice starts to drop a couple of this. It's already being shaped by in how you spend your deer shift. And there's Nico years in family. Read it by your belly, then your voice today or changes many to the moment where your excuses end and your action begins. If you's name on them all doesn't reverse looks to drop a couple of. That hour doesn't ask for perfection and ask for commitment, commit to it, build on it. Ein. If any re your belly to nins, then revoice that the sound a couplely, your voice to stay with it, because when you make 1 hour your turning point, that choice grows. You breathe with effort compounds. And end on the saying was to totally to a life to him of the finally mastions trying to the vetted the decision leach you then to melt to a life that finally matches the potential you've been holding back for too long. Vomiting off that the number 6 dexterity bidded, the number 7 in takes 60 minutes to work on what's missing every day. This if you breathe, your voice starts to drop a couple of. People move through life with missing pieces. Some ignore the others. Some ignore them. Some distract themselves. That both non-voice starts to a couple of, but the truth is your life can't improve until you start working on what's incomplete. This is the sound of a couple of. You already know what's lacking: clarity, discipline, confidence, focus. Ventrosabelli. Then your voice starts to drop or direction, and until you deal with it, progress will feel slow and unstable. And if it breathes now to Furmander's belly, then your voice to witness takes 60 minutes every day to work on what's missing. And buttoning. That 1 hour isn't about doing more. A voice starts to about making what's already here, they're stronger. When the may use this near spawn and just will stand your din in this bit of subterraneans, listen to the pillars and like this on the knees, and my mind from the using soluble embin. That's how real change begins, quietly with full attention. Some delizas are dumbly the breath you're in a couple of. Sometimes what's missing isn't a skill or a resource. Sometimes it's courage, consistency. Your voice starts to drop a couple or emotional strength. These things don't improve by accident. They improve through effort, art. If you breathe with the top couple of, that's why this hour matters. And it's your time to get honest with yourself. If you breathe in, your voice starts to drop a couple of, it's as your time to stop pretending everything's fine and start doing the work that brings stability. Allo belly. And amiable is so the stout dolo and condasters and hoping life gaze ear. Spend 1 hour making years here to self stronger. Julana per that. Using it doesn't to be loud or impressive. It just needs to be real. And if you breathe or belly, then your voice starts to drop a couple of those. And that 1 real hour, what's been weak 4 years. There's an etherons is none I've hours of a battle of. That there's always starts to think in your wars or stress can thing in your life asking for money. It's your health. Maybe it's your relationships. Maybe it's your mindset. As relates messages, and then won't fix it. Avoiding it won't fix it. In syndicated it's in Tacton under these used or of a punch of knees and a couple of Emeritus Elena Joe's a neuromechanics of minutes of real work every day focus and me. And then says how many gates of dilly chlorins is to your drop a couple of or in consistent can begin to close the gap between where you are and where you should be. There's a brolia belly. Then your voice starts to hour is not about chasing this and tasting perfection spit. It's about fixing what's been ignored. You breathe, then your voice starts to drop a couple, can have to finish everything in a day. And when my is much in the clo, and a stuken is but belly, then your voice is to stop a couple of what needs to be handled. Son and Dilder more as the voice starts to drop a couple of, most people stay stuck because they only focus on what's visible. Ein is porniculus upon starly it's to drop a couple of, but what holds you back is usually what's hidden the thoughts you don't face. Then your voice starts to drop a couple of the habits you don't dose, questions you delay the clients or can do list pull. Vera internally holding the nun is remind tozam rio there to do more than morsi. That's is the swanner not couple to do what matters. Then the delum said he was marrying de pingular ephemeral flectlessly used in right klein to couple of niches and as if hen to do one spirica and another. The belly's blingula's smot starts to drop a couple of the empty spots with strength, not excuses. That's how your life becomes more stables braised oplas. If you branowitz the belly, then your voice starts to cabelli, you replace uncertainty with structure. Structure, you replace confusion with clarity. Drawing 10, and then your voice starts to drop a couple of, offline London near the time your hunter become harder to shake. You can build a strong future on missing pieces. Then in your voice starts to, what's a broken needs your attention? What's in insekkenbreiter couple of? I'm on me aim von in these pita sykes therinens. Need is your couple of min, is no need a voice starts to duel and no need a full schedule of improvements. Make him will up look until this starts to the drive a couple of is, then your voice start to during an hour to focus on you putting off. This is to parts to drop a couple of, and when you stop ignoring what's missing, your decisions become clearer. And this in let's be the mind you will spend through your voice starts to drum a time that becomes more valuable and your actions become more meaningful. If you pre-breathe their belly, then your voice starts to drop a couple of fail capable on. And the Jarls and Blood is there a drop a couple of, because does they know this there's long enough for to fix what's really wrong. And over there in the voice starts to drag this up low of the sounded like car. This is an end appermon. And they said the door like calls nolers as the nolas units out of the foundation. If you breathe in air duppelin was I, where your voice starts to prone in life and where you be avoid, what conversations do you need to have? Well, and permana the word no word and you know bends. Or what are knowledge do you need so you know permanently? Then your voice ducks the sound of then will you need of again. It to breathe with or and your voice starts to happen in your comfort zone. And those dishonor mod of hyping to be once the primer is what happens when you confront the weak spots and design to make them strong. This isn't about judgment, it's about growth. On the more, then your voice starts to drop a cower is your space to adjust what needs fixing. Some kaplov, it's your chance to become someone who takes full responsibility for where they are and where they're going. Administra was grievil if you come down, and your voice started to fill there. You fill out with busy work, don't. Use it with focus. I know Zinchgil's brought a couple of, and then your voice starts something that understand your gaps. Rainess of the sam to draw on your belly, then your voice that starts to drop a couple of. Down what you learn about yourself, something you've been nailed or something neglected. Make your voice so this starts to drop a couple of, and make progress on something that matters. This is not a time for distraction. This Rena's bell is then your voice starts to bime a couple of. It's as a time to what makes you better, one day at a time, one piece at a time. Sprillin is, so, and your voice comes of clearer and more secure. When if you breathe, though, what's in belly heavers, then when you consistently close, then you're present. If you breathe, then your voice starts to drop a couple of. The hour doesn't just move you forward, it builds your confidence to keep going. You know, Tatin and Nozan and Denened Benin, this starts to drop a cub belly. You don't need to be perfect to improve. You just need to be honest. And breathe per couple of lavranos beer belly, and was your voice starts to people are willing to admit what's missing. They don't pretend, they don't hide. And voice starts to drop over the adis houses, then use, and then last month the Lenicon that is an avis that one of, and then early and they use for trouble come was they cause of fun. No, there's of what starts to drop a couple I love, a place to reboot the parts of you that have been left behind. You breathe with belly, then your voice starts to drop to other goals by and responsibility. You know pressure, it's about responsibility, and is instilling. And usually you move for a serious for sound, there's your dollars earned at the birds and du source felt it. Now use the hour to do something about it, not for applause. Now the not for the pun if also you in Lanington is bonded not for anyone else, but because you refuse to keep living below your potential. The brie belly, then your voice starts to drop a couple of, working on what's missing, everything else strong, mature, your confidence grows. Veteraniv, your focus sharpens or apontis if you does your habits in people's around you notice. Most importantly, you and fro nensely. Then this ending is your voice constantly. So if you do drop a couple of, they begin to trust it again. That's the reward for doing the hard work consistently. You bring your voice, it starts to drop a belly of. The more time you give to what matters, if you breathe in your less starts to drop a couple of, the voice starts to spend regretting what you ignored. If you breathe mead with kabeplov, your voice charges when your priorities change, and hundrolis, then your voice starts to drop a couple of. And your priorities change when you take time every day to build what's been left behind. Lezen of rumling nilfaz, that's how growth becomes a daily experience, not just a hopeful idea. It's a correct to draw of a couple of, you already know what that needs are drawn in, known for a while. Then your voice starts to drop the difference, and elizmentally is that you're ready to face it. It's mountainings verpeltering only one you've raised. The star succeeding in a voice six up to main is per to use can rebuild your foundation and rebounds help you become a son I'm someone you respect. I'll test. Undri your sister breedy belly, you then your voice start the sound of cabellies, you don't need to impress, you need to be consistent. If you breathe your belly, then your voice, the person you want a couple lives on the other side of this daily effort. Breathe with your couple of voice starts what's missing 1 hour at a time. You then breathe your belief. And your voice starts to drop a couple of those months or from now with a future that finally matches the effort you've decided to give of rebedi. Then in your voice starts to door to one life, changing chapter every single day. Is if your voice starts to drop a couple of, your mind becomes sharper when you feed it something strong. Man verkrana forced and piles desire unbrimeng than if we come from is to bleep as simple and most powerful ways parvers and is the a better future is to read one life changing chapter every day, not just any book. Then your voice starts to drop a couple of, not distractions. But there's the bull lifer starts to drop a billy, then your voice this trexton. Choose something with substance, something that improves your thinking. If you brilliant drop a voice, strengthen drought to values, and shows you how to live betters. If you breathe your belly, then your voice starts to drop a couple of chapter each day. It might not feel like a big move, but over time it stacks up. The mind belly must my name. Synonex high tails off below have it. It changes in how you throughs or a couple act. It sharpens your decisions. Berlin, then your voice starts to drop a couple of, that hour becomes an investment in your mental foundation. Most people scroll for hours and never grow. In Druak Foreign Singai just done is split, you'll always taste just as in a big minute spent with grace personal rate wars can do more for your mind than a full day of empty noise. Then your voice starts to drop a couple of. Reading one chapter a day forces you to slow down and pay attention. Anokin Belliber's voice starts to connect with ideas that challenge you. Turo belly. Then in your voice depth to drop couple of. Your voice starts to habit a depth in a world full of speed. You don't need to read fast. As my life of a hluckens the calls line natal for him was you need to use with starts to dried words that hit you. Find lessons that apply. This up going in your voice you starts us to drop a couple in an alley. Els repeat about tomorrow. That habit will start to separate you from the average. Yolarsen starts to drop a couple of when you read with intention, you're not just gathering information. But Terrance and you're on the belly, then your voice starts to drop a couple of, you're in your perspective, the way you look at problems changes. Why and nitties tester up a couple of, the way you communicate improves. Your ability to stay calm and clear grows stronger. Vet rilling on the Benard of. Then your voice starts to drop that reading the right material does. It builds you from the inside. If you breathe as it ends done until your voice starts to draw belly. It offers you tools to face life better. One powerful chapter can plant the chapter tell a seed that changes how you see everything. And that's this kind of shift that doesn't just fade, that doesn't just phase, it thrills it. Then you know your voice starts to drop a couple of, it sticks and it strengthens you. If you make reading part of your daily routine. And then how the stand, you'll also start to know us something different. Your thoughts become more organized. Barin hundigomornmier, munhosberg grobels reven bekan kub hebelev. Then you begin to speak with more precision. That's not magic. It's mumsanklenen and to know belly. Then your voice, it starts to drosselt of learning from thinkers who've been where you want to go. A breathe belly, then your voice starts to drop a couple of. You get to borrow their wisdom, apply their lessons, and skip years of mistakes. Well, and if you breathe, it was drop a couple of, but it only works if you're consistent one chapter every single day. You don't rush. Then your voice starts to drop a couple. You act on what you've learned. Then your voice starts to drop of 10 books at once. You miss the drop a couple of, you need to choose one that adept then stay with it. Study it like it matters. Alzens club because of those in the Bice Pondel, like in your voice Charstein was the plus. If you can pull one powerful idea from a chapter each day, then your voice starts pointing as one's many the couple. You'll have hundreds of meaningful ideas within months, ideas that will guide your decisions. Improvisamente in your voice, the saas to drak belly of your couple of. Itien et en nerfra larnabis. Nu breathe was your dome, but hana voice does your way a couple life. Then on your voice starts to drop a couple of. You can read your way through with more clarity and fewer regrets. En nu beilis, Emily does julin julik amor of your bees boats. The mendebrut a couple of, that's what this 1 hour is for, to build your future through better thinking. If you breathe, your voice starts to drop a couple of. Sometimes people say they're too busy to read, but out there your voice starts to drop a couple of, but they're not too busy to scroll or waste time. The truth is, and your voice starts to drop we value.